She couldn't see the darkness around her, but she could hear the crying. A soft, wounded sound that pulled at something deep in her chest. So she followed it, small hands brushing against rough bark, her feet careful on the uneven ground. The forest had always been forbidden, but the creature needed her. She was sure of it. What she didn't know was that the sound was not a cry for help. It was a call. And the one calling was something far more dangerous than anything her village had ever warned her about. The village called her blind little Aria, though she hated the pity in their voices when they said it. She was 8 years old and had never seen a sunrise, never seen her mother's face, never seen the flowers she picked by touch and smell alone. But she had learned to see in other ways. The world spoke to her in whispers of wind, in the texture of leaves, in the warmth of the sun on her skin. Today, she sat at the edge of the village where the meadow met the tree line, her fingers weaving through wild grass. The other children were playing somewhere behind her. She could hear their laughter, sharp and excluding. They never invited her to play. They said she would slow them down. Her mother had gone to the market. Aria was supposed to wait. But then she heard it. A sound like weeping, high-pitched and fragile, coming from the forest. A bat, she thought. Injured maybe. Alone definitely. She knew what alone felt like. She stood, her heart pulling her forward. Far deeper in the forest, in a castle wrapped in shadows and silence, he sat on a throne he no longer wanted. They called him Lord Caelan, the Blood King, the Nightwalker, the Dreaded One. He had ruled for 3 centuries, and in all that time, he had felt nothing. No joy. No sorrow. No hunger that wasn't for blood. He was empty. His kind did not love. They did not hope. They existed, predators in an endless night. But lately, something had shifted. A restlessness. A strange, gnawing ache he couldn't name. He had tried to fill it with power, with fear, with the hunt. Nothing worked. So tonight, he decided to call something to him. Not for feeding. Not for sport. Just to see if he could still feel anything at all when he looked into the eyes of the innocent before he took it away. He stepped onto his balcony, opened his mouth, and let out a sound, a bat's cry, twisted with compulsion and old magic. It would travel far. It would sound pitiful. Irresistible. Someone would come. And then, perhaps, he would remember what it felt like to be something other than a monster. Aria moved slowly, her hands reaching out to touch the trees as she passed them. The forest smelled like damp earth and pine. The air was cooler here, thicker. She could feel it pressing against her skin. The cry came again, closer now. Soft and trembling. "Don't worry," she whispered. "I'm coming." She didn't hear her mother calling her name far behind. She didn't hear the village bells ringing in warning as someone noticed she was missing. She only heard the cry. Her foot caught on a root and she stumbled, her palms scraping against rough ground. She winced but didn't stop. The creature needed her. Finally, the sound stopped. The forest went silent. Aria stood still, her breath shallow. "Hello?" she called. "Are you still there?" For a long moment, nothing. Then a voice. Deep. Smooth. Not a bat at all. "I'm here." She froze. That wasn't an animal. "You're lost," the voice said. It came from directly in front of her, close enough that she should have heard him approach. But there had been no footsteps. No rustling leaves. "I'm not lost," she said, her chin lifting. "I was helping someone." "Were you?" It wasn't a question. His voice was soft, almost amused. But there was something else underneath. Something cold. "Who are you?" Aria asked. Silence. Then, closer now, so close she could feel the chill radiating from him, he said, "Someone you should not have followed." Her heart began to pound. She took a step back. But his hand caught hers. Not rough. Not pulling. Just holding. His skin was ice cold. "You can't see me, can you?" he asked quietly. "No," she whispered. "Good," he murmured. "Then you won't be afraid." But she was. Not of his voice. Not of his hand. But of the way the forest had gone completely silent. No birds. No insects. Nothing. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice small. He didn't answer right away. She felt him move closer. Felt his breath, cold and impossibly still, against her forehead. "I don't know yet," he finally said. And for the first time in 300 years, Caelan told the truth. Aria tried to pull her hand away, but his grip tightened. Not painfully, but firmly. "Let me go," she said, her voice shaking now. "Why did you come into the forest, little one?" Caelan asked, ignoring her demand. "Don't you know it's dangerous?" "I heard crying," she said. "Something was hurt. And you thought you could help?" His tone was mocking, but there was something else beneath it. Curiosity, maybe. Or disbelief. Yes. He laughed then, a sound like cold wine through empty halls. "You're blind. You're a child. You're fragile as glass. What could you possibly do to help anything?" The words stung, but Aria had heard worse from the village children. She lifted her chin again. "I can listen. I can care. That's more than most people do." The laughter stopped. Caelan stared down at her, though she couldn't see it. Her face was smudged with dirt from her fall. Her dress was simple, worn. Her eyes were open but unfocused, gazing past him at nothing. She should have been easy to dismiss. Easy to drain and forget. But something about her defiance, small as it was, made him pause. "You should go home," he said, releasing her hand. Aria stumbled back, rubbing her wrist. "Which way?" He could have pointed. Could have sent her in circles until she collapsed from exhaustion. Instead, he felt an unfamiliar flicker of something. Guilt? Impossible. Behind you. Straight line. Don't stop until you reach the meadow. She hesitated. "Why did you call me here?" "I didn't call you." "Yes, you did. I heard you crying." "I don't cry, child." His voice was sharp now. "I haven't cried in 3 centuries. Then why did you sound so sad?" The question hit him like a stake. He stepped back, his jaw tightening. "Go. Now. Before I change my mind about letting you leave." Aria turned, her hands reaching out. But after 3 steps, she stopped. "Are you alone out here?" Caelan's eyes narrowed. "What?" "You sound alone," she said softly. "Like the cry. Like you don't want to be, but you are." "Leave," he hissed, his voice dropping to something dangerous. This time, she obeyed. She hurried forward, her hands shaking as they guided her past trees and thorns. But even as she moved, her heart ached. Not for herself. For him. Behind her, Caelan stood in the shadows, fists clenched. He should have killed her. Should have silenced that innocent, piercing voice. But he hadn't. And he didn't know why. Aria made it halfway to the meadow before she tripped again. This time, her ankle twisted sharply and she cried out, collapsing onto the ground. She tried to stand, but pain shot up her leg and she fell back down, gasping. "No," she whispered. "Please, no." She tried again. Failed again. Tears pricked her eyes. Then she heard footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. "You're still in my forest," Caelan's voice said from above her. "I fell," she said, her voice breaking. "My ankle. I can't walk." He said nothing for a long moment. Then, with a sigh that sounded almost human, he crouched beside her. "Let me see." "No. Don't be foolish. You'll die out here if you stay." "Maybe you want me to," she shot back. "If I wanted you dead, little one, you already would be." The truth of it silenced her. She bit her lip, then slowly extended her leg. His hands, still cold, touched her ankle gently. She flinched. "It's swollen," he said. "Not broken. But you won't make it home tonight." "Then what do I do?" Panic edged into her voice now. "My mother will be so worried. She should have watched you better." "Don't talk about her like that." Caelan tilted his head, studying her. "You're very brave for someone so small." "I'm not brave. I'm scared." "Then why do you keep talking back to me?" "Because," Aria said, her lip trembling, "if I'm going to die, I don't want to die quiet." For the second time that night, Caelan felt something crack inside him. Something old and frozen. "You're not going to die," he said, his voice softer now. "Not tonight." Before she could respond, he slipped one arm beneath her knees and the other behind her back, lifting her as if she weighed nothing. Aria gasped. "What are you doing?" "Taking you somewhere safe until your ankle heals." "Where?" "My home." "No." Her hands pushed weakly against his chest. "Let me go. Would you rather I leave you for the wolves?" She went still. "There are wolves?" "Among other things." She swallowed hard, then slowly, reluctantly, she stopped struggling. "Fine. But only until morning." "Only until morning," he agreed. He began to walk, and she had no choice but to rest her head against his shoulder. His body was cold, but his hold was steady. And despite everything, she felt something strange. Safe. "Before we continue, I want to hear from you. Where in the world are you watching this from? Seriously, drop a comment below and tell me your country, your city, wherever you are right now. I love knowing that this story is reaching hearts across the globe. You're not just a viewer. You're part of this family. And trust me, we've got so much more emotion, tension, and passion coming your way. So hit that subscribe button and join the fastest growing vampire love stories community on YouTube. You're special. Don't miss what's next." Caelan's castle was not what Aria expected. She had imagined cold stone and darkness, and while those things were present, there was also warmth from a fireplace, the smell of old books, and silk beneath her when he set her down on a chaise. "Where are we?" she asked. "My library." "You read? Why does that surprise you?" "I don't know. You just seem like someone who does other things." "Like kill?" She flinched. "I didn't say that." "But you thought it." He moved away, and she heard the clink of glass. "I'm not going to pretend I'm something I'm not, child. I've killed more people than you could count." "Then why didn't you kill me?" Silence. Then, quieter, I don't know. He returned to her side, pressing a cool glass into her hands. Drink. It's water. Not poisoned, before you ask. She took a small sip, her hands trembling slightly. Why do you live out here alone? Caelan sat across from her, studying her face in the firelight. Because my kind doesn't build families. We don't form bonds. We exist in solitude, or we destroy each other. That sounds lonely. It's survival. Aria set the glass down carefully on what she assumed was a table. Her fingers traced the edge of the furniture, ornate carvings beneath her touch. How long have you been alone? 342 years. The number hung in the air like a weight. Aria's breath caught. That's not survival. That's punishment. Caelan's jaw tightened. What would you know about it? I know what it feels like when people look through you like you're not there, she said, her voice steady now. I know what it's like to sit in a room full of people and feel completely invisible. I know what it's like to wonder if anyone would even notice if you disappeared. He stared at her, this small blind girl with dirt on her face and wisdom in her words that shouldn't belong to someone so young. You're 8 years old, he said quietly. Almost 9. And I've been alone every single one of those years, even when I'm surrounded by people. She turned her face toward him, her unseeing eyes somehow finding his direction. So don't tell me I don't understand. For a long moment, neither spoke. The fire crackled. Somewhere in the castle, a clock chimed midnight. I had a daughter once, Caelan finally said, the words pulled from somewhere deep. Long ago. Before I became this. Aria's expression softened. What happened to her? She died. A sickness swept through our village. I couldn't save her. His voice was flat, emotionless, but Aria could hear the grief beneath it like bedrock. I was human then. Weak. Helpless. When a vampire found me 3 days after I buried her, dying of the same sickness. He offered me a choice. Death or eternal life. I chose life because I was a coward. Because I was afraid of the darkness waiting for me. But you've lived in darkness ever since, Aria whispered. Yes. She reached out blindly, her small hands searching. Caelan watched it hover in the air between them, trembling slightly. Slowly, against every instinct, he reached out and took it. Her hand was warm. Impossibly warm. What was her name? Aria asked. Eliza. She was 7. He paused. She used to pick flowers by the river and bring them to me. She couldn't carry many because her hands were so small, but she always brought me one. Every single day. Aria squeezed his hand gently. She sounds like she loved you very much. I failed her. No. Aria's voice was firm. You were human. You got sick. That's not failure. That's just being mortal. And now I'm immortal, and I've spent 3 centuries trying to forget what it felt like to love her. To love anything. Did it work? Aria asked. Did you forget? Caelan looked down at their joined hands. Until tonight, I thought I had. A tear slipped down Aria's cheek. I'm sorry you lost her. Something in Caelan's chest, something that had been frozen solid for over 300 years, began to crack. Not break. Not yet. But crack. Why are you crying? He asked. Because you can't, she said simply. The night stretched on, and Caelan found himself doing something he hadn't done in centuries. Talking. Really talking. He told her about the world before, when he was human. About his wife who had died giving birth to Eliza. About the small farm he'd worked. About how Eliza had been afraid of the dark, so he'd carved her a wooden star and told her it held sunlight inside it. Aria listened to every word, her face turned toward him, her expression rapt. "Do you still have it?" she asked. "The star?" Caelan stood and crossed the room. He opened a drawer in an ancient desk and pulled out a small wooden object. His fingers traced its familiar edges. "Yes," he said quietly. "Can I feel it?" He returned to her and placed it in her hands. Aria's fingers explored every curve, every groove. It was smooth from age, worn from handling. She could feel the love that had gone into carving it. "You've kept it all this time," she whispered. "It's all I have left of her. Of who I was." Aria held it carefully, reverently. Then she handed it back. "You're still him, you know." "No. That man died." "No," she insisted. "He's just been hiding. I can hear him in your voice when you talk about her." She smiled slightly. "He sounds kind." Caelan sat back down, turning the star over in his hands. "What about you? Where's your father?" "Gone. He left when he found out I was blind. Said he didn't want a broken child." The words were said matter-of-factly, but Caelan heard the pain beneath them. His hand tightened around the wooden star. "You're not broken," he said, his voice hard. "I know. But he thought I was. A lot of people do. Then they're fools." Aria smiled, a real smile this time. "My mother says the same thing. She says I see more than people with working eyes because I see what's inside." "Your mother sounds wise." "She is. She's probably terrified right now." Aria's smile faded. "I didn't mean to worry her. We'll get you home at first light. I promise." Aria nodded, then yawned. Caelan noticed her eyes drooping. "You should sleep," he said. "I'm not tired," she mumbled, even as her head began to nod forward. He moved beside her, gently guiding her to lie down on the chaise. He pulled a soft blanket over her, one that had been stored away for decades. "Will you stay?" she asked sleepily. "I don't like being alone in strange places." Caelan hesitated. Then he sat on the floor beside the chaise, his back against it. "I'll stay," he said quietly. Within minutes, her breathing deepened into sleep. Caelan sat in the silence, the wooden star still in his hand. And for the first time in 342 years, he didn't feel alone. Aria woke to voices. Angry voices. "Where is she? You monster, what have you done with her?" It was her mother. Aria sat up quickly, her ankle protesting. "Mother?" "Aria." Her mother's voice broke with relief and rage. "Get away from her." Caelan stood near the window, his expression unreadable. "She's unharmed. She injured her ankle. I gave her shelter." "Shelter? You're a vampire. You're a killer." Aria's mother rushed forward, pulling Aria into her arms. "The whole village knows what you are, Lord Caelan. We know about the missing travelers. The bodies drained of blood." Aria's blood went cold. "Bodies? Don't listen to him," her mother said. "Whatever he told you, whatever spell he put you under, it's lies." "I didn't," Caelan started, but Aria's mother cut him off. "The hunters are coming. They've been tracking you for weeks. They know you lured my daughter here." She clutched Aria tighter. "They'll burn this castle to the ground." Aria's heart pounded. "Caelan? Is it true? Have you been killing people? Caelan's jaw tightened. His eyes met Aria's, even though she couldn't see him. I am what I am. That's not an answer, Aria said, her voice shaking. Yes, he said finally. I've killed. I'm a vampire. It's my nature. But you didn't kill me. No. Why? Caelan looked away. Because you reminded me of someone I loved. Someone I failed. And I thought perhaps if I could save you, it might balance the scales. But your mother's right. You need to leave. Now. Aria felt her world tilting. All those stories. All that kindness. Was any of it real? Did you lie to me? She asked, her voice small. About your daughter? About being alone? No, Caelan said, his voice raw. That was all true. But you've been killing people. While pretending to be something you're not. I never pretended, child. I told you exactly what I was. You chose to see something else. The words cut deep. Aria felt tears streaming down her face. We're leaving, her mother said firmly, lifting Aria into her arms despite her weight. And you stay away from my daughter. If I ever see you near her again, I'll kill you myself. Caelan said nothing. He simply stepped back into the shadows. As Aria's mother carried her toward the door, Aria called out, Wait. No, her mother said. We're not waiting. Please, Aria begged. Just 1 minute. Her mother hesitated, then set her down, keeping a protective arm around her. 1 minute. Aria turned toward where she'd last heard Caelan's voice. Did you call me into the forest to kill me? Silence. Then, yes. But you didn't. No. Why? Because when you spoke, when you showed me kindness without even knowing what I was, I remembered what it felt like to be human. And I couldn't take that away. Not from you. Not from myself. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. You gave me something I thought I'd lost forever, Aria. Hope. Hope? Aria's mother spat. You're a murderer. You don't deserve hope. You're right, Caelan said quietly. I don't. Torchlight suddenly flickered through the windows. Voices shouted outside. The hunters had arrived. They're here, Aria's mother said, pulling Aria toward the door. Come on, baby. But Aria resisted. Mother, wait. No waiting. We're leaving now. They'll kill him. Good. That's what he deserves. Aria's chest tightened. She thought of the wooden star. Of the man who had carved it for his daughter. Of the loneliness in Caelan's voice when he spoke of 300 years alone. Of how gently he'd held her hand. No, she said firmly. It's not. Aria, her mother pleaded. The door burst open. 5 men with torches and crossbows stormed in. There, one shouted, pointing at Caelan. The vampire lord. Caelan didn't move. Didn't fight. He simply stood there, his eyes on Aria. Kill it, another hunter commanded. As they raised their weapons, Aria broke free from her mother and stumbled forward, placing herself between Caelan and the hunters. No, she screamed. Don't hurt him. Get out of the way, child, the lead hunter barked. He saved me. He protected me. He's a monster. So are people who kill without asking questions, Aria shot back, her small frame trembling but defiant. He could have hurt me. He could have killed me. But he didn't. He gave me shelter. He talked to me like I mattered. She turned her face up toward Caelan. He treated me like I wasn't broken. Aria, please, Caelan said softly. Move. No. They'll kill you too. Then they'll have to, she said, her voice breaking. Because I'm not moving. The hunters exchanged uncertain glances. The lead hunter lowered his crossbow slightly. You'd die for a vampire? I'd die for someone who showed me kindness when he didn't have to, Aria said. I'd die for someone who's suffered enough. Caelan's eyes widened. For the first time in centuries, he felt something hot behind his eyes. Something impossible. Tears. Aria, he whispered. You don't know what you're saying. Yes, I do. She reached back blindly until her hand found his. And she held on tight. You said I gave you hope. Well, you gave me something too. You made me feel seen. I need to pause this story right here and ask you something. What would you do in Aria's position? Would you defend someone who admitted to killing, or would you walk away? Drop your answer in the comments because I genuinely want to know what you're thinking right now. And listen, if you're feeling this story, if your heart is racing like mine is, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Join our family. We're building the most passionate vampire love story community on YouTube, and you belong here. We've got incredible stories coming, plot twists that'll wreck you in the best way, and you don't want to miss a single one. Now, let's get back to Aria and Caelan. The lead hunter stepped forward, his weathered face conflicted. Little girl, do you understand what he is? What he's done? I understand he's killed people, Aria said, her voice steady despite her tears. I understand he's a vampire. I understand he's dangerous. But I also understand he's in pain. And pain makes people do terrible things. That's no excuse, the hunter said. I know. Aria squeezed Caelan's hand. But maybe it's a reason. Maybe it's something that can change. Vampires don't change, another hunter spat. They're soulless. Then why is he crying? Aria asked. Every head turned to Caelan. Sure enough, blood-red tears tracked down his pale face. He looked as shocked as everyone else. I don't, he started, then stopped. His hand came up to touch his cheek, coming away wet. His expression crumbled. I haven't cried since the day I buried my daughter. Aria's mother stepped forward slowly, her anger wavering. Your daughter? Caelan's voice was broken now, all pretense stripped away. Eliza. She was 7. She died of fever and I couldn't save her. I became this because I was afraid to face death. Afraid to face her and whatever comes after, knowing I failed her. He looked down at Aria. And tonight, this child walked into my forest and reminded me of everything I'd lost. Everything I threw away. The hunters lowered their weapons slightly, uncertainty replacing certainty. How many have you killed? The lead hunter asked quietly. Too many, Caelan said. I stopped counting decades ago. I told myself it was survival. That I had no choice. But the truth is, I was just filling the emptiness with blood because I didn't know how else to feel anything. And now? Aria's mother asked. Now I feel everything, Caelan said, looking down at Aria. And it's agony. Because I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I don't deserve mercy. But this child is offering it anyway. Aria turned to the hunters, her face streaked with tears. Please. Give him a chance. Just one chance to be better. And if he kills again? The lead hunter asked. Then I'll help you hunt him myself, Aria said. But I don't think he will. I think he's been waiting 300 years for a reason not to. The hunters looked at each other. Finally, the lead hunter sighed heavily. One chance. But if we hear of even one death, one disappearance, we're coming back. And no little girl will stop us. Understood, Caelan said hoarsely. And you leave this forest, another hunter added. You don't stay here luring travelers. Caelan nodded slowly. Where would I go? Aria's mother spoke up, her voice shocking everyone. There's an abandoned cottage on the edge of our village. Near the river. She looked at Aria, then back at Caelan. If you truly want to change, you'll do it where people can see you. Where you can be held accountable. You'd let me live near your village? Near your daughter? No, Aria's mother said firmly. I'd let you prove you're more than what you've been. There's a difference. Caelan stared at her, something like wonder crossing his face. Why? Aria's mother knelt down, gathering her daughter close. Because my daughter has a gift I've never fully understood until now. She sees the truth in people. Not with her eyes, but with her heart. And if she believes there's something worth saving in you, then maybe she's right. She stood, her gaze hard. But understand this, vampire. You hurt her, you hurt anyone in my village, and there is nowhere in this world you'll be able to hide from me. I understand, Caelan said quietly. The lead hunter spat on the ground. This is madness. Perhaps, Aria's mother said. But so is a blind child walking into a dark forest and coming out alive. Maybe we're due for a little madness. The hunters reluctantly lowered their weapons completely. The lead hunter pointed at Caelan. 3 days. You have 3 days to move to that cottage. And we'll be watching. Caelan nodded. 3 days. The hunters filed out, muttering among themselves. Aria's mother lifted Aria into her arms again. Wait, Aria said. Mother, please. 1 more minute. Her mother sighed but set her down gently. Aria reached out, and Caelan took her hand immediately. You meant what you said? He asked. About helping them hunt me if I kill again? Yes, Aria said simply. Because I believe you're better than what you've been. But belief isn't enough. You have to choose it. Every single day. I don't know if I can. Then learn, Aria said. I'll help you. Why would you do that? Because everyone deserves someone who believes in them, she said. And because I know what it's like to have everyone think you're less than what you are. She smiled slightly. Besides, you kept your promise. You said you'd keep me safe until morning, and you did. Caelan's throat tightened. He pulled something from his pocket. The wooden star. He pressed it into her hands. No, Aria said, trying to give it back. This is yours. It's all you have of her. Which is why I want you to have it, Caelan said gently. Eliza would have liked you. She had your courage. Your kindness. He closed her fingers around it. Keep it safe for me. And when I prove I can be better, you can give it back. Aria clutched the star to her chest. I'll keep it safe. I promise. Come on, sweetheart, her mother said softly. We need to go home. Aria nodded. She turned to leave, then paused. Caelan? Yes. The cottage by the river. There are wildflowers there. In the spring. You can see them from the window. Caelan's eyes widened slightly. He remembered. Eliza. Flowers. The river. Thank you, he whispered. As Aria and her mother left, Caelan stood alone in his castle for the last time. He looked around at the shadows he'd hidden in for over 3 centuries. At the prison he'd built from his own grief and guilt. Then he walked to the window and watched the sun begin to rise, something he hadn't done in longer than he could remember. It burned, but he didn't look away. He had 3 days to leave this place. 3 days to begin again. And for the first time since he'd become a monster, he wanted to. 3 months later, the village had adjusted to its strangest resident. Lord Caelan, the vampire who lived in the cottage by the river, was nothing like the stories said vampires should be. He didn't lurk in shadows waiting to drain the innocent. He didn't terrorize the village or steal children in the night. Instead, he did something far more unexpected. He helped. When old Thomas's roof collapsed during a storm, Caelan rebuilt it in a single night with strength no human possessed. When the miller's daughter went missing in the woods, Caelan tracked her in minutes and carried her home safely. When sickness threatened the village, he rode 3 days to the city and returned with medicine, paid for with centuries-old gold he'd hoarded. He never asked for thanks. Never expected acceptance. But slowly, carefully, the village began to soften. Not everyone. Some still crossed the street when they saw him. Still whispered prayers and clutched holy symbols. But others nodded in greeting. Some even spoke to him. And every single day, just after sunset, Aria came to visit. Her mother allowed it, though she always walked Aria to the cottage herself and stayed nearby. But she no longer looked at Caelan with pure hatred. Now it was cautious respect. Watchful hope. Tonight, Aria sat on Caelan's porch, her feet swinging as she told him about her day. Caelan sat beside her, whittling a piece of wood. And then Jacob said I couldn't possibly know what color the sky was because I've never seen it, Aria was saying. So I told him I knew it was blue because it sounds blue. Sounds blue? Caelan asked, amused. Yes. The sky has a big, open, peaceful sound. That's blue. And what does red sound like? Aria thought for a moment. Loud. Like anger or love. Big feelings. Caelan smiled. That's quite accurate. What are you making? Aria asked, pointing vaguely in his direction. A bird, Caelan said. For you. So you can feel what they look like when you hear them sing. He placed the partially finished carving in her hands. Aria's fingers explored it carefully, tracing wings and beak. It's beautiful, she whispered. Not finished yet. I'll have it done by tomorrow. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Aria said quietly, Do you still think about her? Eliza? Every day, Caelan said. But it doesn't hurt the same way anymore. What does it feel like now? Like love, he said. Just love. Without the guilt crushing it. That's good, Aria said. She reached into her pocket and pulled up a wooden star. Do you want this back yet? Caelan looked at it, then at Aria. Not yet. You're not done keeping it safe. When will I be done? When you don't need to ask anymore, he said gently. You'll know. Aria's mother approached from the garden path. Time to go home, sweetheart. Aria stood, clutching the star. Caelan stood as well. Same time tomorrow? Aria asked. If you'd like. I would. As they walked away, Aria's mother paused and turned back. Lord Caelan? He looked up. Yes. Thank you. For the medicine. For saving Thomas's roof. For everything. Caelan bowed his head slightly. It's the least I can do. No, she said firmly. It's not the least. It's actually quite a lot. She paused. My name is Margaret. You've been here 3 months. You should know the name of your neighbor. Something warm bloomed in Caelan's chest. Thank you, Margaret. She nodded and took Aria's hand. They disappeared into the evening. Caelan sat back down on his porch, picking up his whittling knife. Through the window behind him, fresh wildflowers sat in a vase. Aria had picked them by touch and smell, and brought them to him last week. He'd cried when she gave them to him. She pretended not to notice. As he carved, he thought about the centuries behind him. The darkness. The blood. The endless, aching loneliness. He couldn't undo any of it. Couldn't bring back the people he'd killed. Couldn't erase what he'd become. But he could choose what he did next. Every single day, he could choose. A bat cried somewhere in the forest, a real one this time, not a lure or a trap. Just a creature calling into the night. Caelan didn't answer it. Instead, he looked down at the bird taking shape in his hands, at the wildflowers in his window, at the village lights flickering in the distance. And for the first time in 342 years, he felt something he thought he'd never feel again. He felt like he belonged. 2 years passed. Aria was almost 11 now, taller and more confident. The village children no longer excluded her from their games. In fact, she'd become something of a leader among them, teaching them how to listen to the world the way she did. And Caelan had become part of the village fabric in ways no one could have predicted. The vampire who lived by the river was now the person people came to when they needed help. When crops failed, he shared the vegetables from his garden, which somehow grew fuller and healthier than anyone else's. When bandits threatened the roads, he tracked them down and sent them running with fear in their eyes and not a drop of blood spilled. He'd kept his promise. Not a single death. Not even when the hunger clawed at him in the dark hours before dawn. Instead, he'd learned to survive on animal blood, though it never quite satisfied. But satisfaction wasn't the point anymore. Redemption was. And redemption, he was learning, was built one choice at a time. Tonight was the village's harvest festival. Lanterns hung from every tree, and tables overflowed with food. Music drifted through the air, and children ran laughing between the adults. Caelan stood at the edge of the celebration, as he always did. Close enough to help if needed, far enough not to impose. Some things didn't change. He was still a vampire. Still other. Still apart. Or so he thought. Uncle Caelan, a small voice called. He turned to see Aria making her way through the crowd, her hand trailing along a rope that had been strung as a guide for her. Behind her came 3 other children. Uncle Caelan, she said again, slightly out of breath. We need you. What's wrong? He asked, immediately alert. Nothing's wrong, Aria said, grinning. We need you to judge the pie contest. Mrs. Helen and Mrs. Rosa are arguing about whose apple pie is better, and they said they'd only accept your judgment because you're the most honest person in the village. Caelan blinked. I'm not sure that's a good idea. Please, one of the other children piped up. They've been arguing for 20 minutes. And we want to eat the pies, another added. But they won't let us until someone picks a winner. Despite himself, Caelan smiled. Very well. Lead the way. The children cheered and pulled him into the festival. People turned to look, but most smiled or nodded. A few still looked wary, but no one objected. At the dessert table, 2 elderly women stood with their arms crossed, each behind a perfect apple pie. Lord Caelan, Mrs. Helen said primly. Tell this stubborn woman that my pie is clearly superior. His pie has been the same for 40 years, Mrs. Rosa shot back. Mine has a secret ingredient. Caelan looked between them, then at the pies. I'm not sure I'm qualified. You don't have to eat them, Aria said, squeezing his hand. Just smell them. You've told me 1,000 times that vampires have better senses than humans. He had told her that during one of their many conversations about what being a vampire meant. She'd been curious, not afraid, and he'd answered honestly. Now that honesty was being used against him. He leaned down and smelled each pie carefully. Both were excellent, rich with cinnamon and butter. But Mrs. Rosa's had something extra. A hint of vanilla and something else. Cardamom, perhaps. Mrs. Rosa's pie, he said, is technically more complex in flavor. Mrs. Helen's face fell. Mrs. Rosa beamed. However, Caelan continued, Mrs. Helen's pie smells exactly like the apple pies my wife used to make when I was human. And that makes it perfect in a way that transcends technique. Both women stared at him. Then Mrs. Helen's expression softened. You were married? She asked gently. Long ago, Caelan said quietly. Before I became this. Then I suppose we're both winners, Mrs. Rosa said, her competitive edge fading. Yours for the heart, mine for the craft. Agreed, Mrs. Helen said. She began cutting slices. Here, children. Eat. The children swarmed the table. Aria tugged Caelan's sleeve. See? You were the perfect choice. You're very manipulative for someone so young, Caelan said, but his tone was warm. I learned from the best, Aria shot back, grinning. Margaret appeared carrying 2 cups of cider. She handed one to Caelan. You looked thirsty. He took it, surprised. Thank you. She gestured to a bench near the lantern light. Walk with me? They sat together, Aria between them, eating a slice of pie someone had pressed into her hands. She talks about you constantly, Margaret said quietly. Uncle Caelan this, Uncle Caelan that. You've become very important to her. She's important to me as well, Caelan said. I know. Margaret looked at him. 2 years ago, I would have killed you myself if I'd had the chance. I wouldn't have blamed you. But you've proven me wrong. You've proven everyone wrong. She paused. You've become part of this village. Part of our family. Caelan's throat tightened. I never expected that. I only hoped to earn enough forgiveness to live quietly. You've earned more than that. Margaret smiled. The council met last week. We've decided to make it official. You're no longer just the vampire who lives by the river. You're a citizen of this village. With all the rights and protections that come with it. Caelan stared at her. You're serious. Completely. She pulled out a small document. It's signed by everyone on the council. You're one of us now. If you want to be. He took the document with trembling hands. His name was written at the top. Below it, signatures. Dozens of them. I don't know what to say, he whispered. Say you'll stay, Aria said, looking up at him. Say you won't leave. Caelan looked down at her, this blind girl who had walked into his darkness and brought light with her. Who had believed in him when he didn't believe in himself. Who had given him a reason to be better. I'll stay, he said, his voice breaking. For as long as you'll have me. Aria threw her arms around him. Good. Because I'm not giving your star back yet. He laughed, actually laughed and hugged her back. Margaret put her hand on his shoulder, a gesture of acceptance that meant more than any document ever could. Across the festival, people were watching the vampire hold a child with gentleness instead of hunger. Watching him sit among them as an equal, not a threat. And slowly, one by one, they began to approach. "Lord Caelan, would you help me move some furniture tomorrow?" "Lord Caelan, my son wants to learn tracking. Would you teach him?" "Lord Caelan, join us for dinner next week?" Each invitation was a brick, building a bridge between what he'd been and what he was becoming. As the night deepened and the lanterns glowed brighter, Caelan found himself surrounded. Not by fear or hatred, but by community. By belonging. Aria squeezed his hand. "Are you happy?" she whispered. He looked around at the faces that had once wanted him dead, now smiling at him with acceptance. At Margaret, who had become a friend. At the village that had become home. "Yes," he said, and meant it. "I'm happy." "Then you should have this back." Aria pulled the wooden star from her pocket and placed it in his palm. "You proved it. You proved you're more than what you were." Caelan's fingers closed around the star he'd carved for his daughter 3 centuries ago. The last piece of his humanity he'd thought lost forever. But he'd found it again. Not in an object, but in a choice. The choice to be better. To do better. To love again. "Thank you," he said to Aria. "For everything." She smiled. "That's what family does." Family. The word settled over him like a warm blanket. He had a family again. And this time, he wouldn't fail them. Before we close this chapter, I have one final question for you. Do you believe people can truly change? Do you believe that no matter what someone's done, they deserve a second chance if they're willing to do the work? Tell me in the comments. I want to know what you think, because stories like this, they're not just entertainment. They're reflections of the choices we all face. The choice to judge or to understand. To condemn or to give grace. And listen, if this story touched your heart, if Aria and Caelan's journey meant something to you, then you're exactly where you belong. Subscribe to this channel right now. Join our family, our community of people who believe in love that transforms, in second chances, in the power of choosing light over darkness. We've got so many more stories coming that will make you feel everything, and I don't want you to miss a single one. Hit that subscribe button. You're special. You're seen. And you belong here. 10 years later. Aria was 20 now, a young woman with her mother's strength and her own unique wisdom. She'd become a teacher in the village, helping children learn in ways that went beyond books and sight. And Caelan was still there, unchanged by time but changed by life. He'd become the village's protector, its tracker, its helper in times of need. But more than that, he'd become its bridge between the human and supernatural worlds. Other creatures had heard of the vampire who'd chosen peace, and slowly, carefully, a few had followed his example. The village had become a place where human and other could coexist. It wasn't perfect. There were still tensions, still fears. But there was also hope. Today, Aria stood at the river where wildflowers grew thick and colorful. Caelan stood beside her, just as he had countless times before. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "Choosing this life instead of the power you had before?" "Never," Caelan said. "That wasn't life. It was existence. This is life." She smiled and held out her hand. He took it, no longer cold but cool, warmed by purpose and connection. "I'm getting married next spring," she said. "I know. To the blacksmith's son. He's a good man. He is." She paused. I want you to walk me down the aisle. If you're willing. Caelan's eyes widened. Aria, that's traditionally a father's role. I know, she said simply. And you're the closest thing I've ever had to one. Tears, still red but no longer painful, slipped down his face. It would be my greatest honor. She hugged him tightly. You saved my life, you know. That night in the forest. No, Caelan said, holding her close. You saved mine. They stood together by the river as the sun began to set, painting the sky in colors Aria had never seen but understood perfectly. Love, she'd once told him, sounds like every color at once. And standing there, surrounded by family and purpose and belonging, Caelan finally understood what she meant. He'd spent 300 years in darkness. But a blind little girl had led him into the light. And he would spend the rest of eternity making sure that light never dimmed.